How's it going, everybody? It is Ethan, or Unknown Coder, and welcome back to another episode of the Devlog. I believe this is Devlog number 7. It's been a long time, I know, so that's why I want to do a little bit more of a creative intro. Unfortunately, I've run out of cool ideas and I haven't been anywhere cool recently to film, but decided to do a little bit of a spin-off of the office intro with coffee and stuff. Next week, I think I should be able to be on PTO as long as my manager did go ahead and approve that. So maybe I'll do some filming by the pool and stuff. That would be pretty cool. I've been really busy lately. That's why I haven't had any videos. I'm going to go more in depth in the next Minecraft video. I want to keep these videos a little bit shorter, a little bit more just about coding and my progress with the project. If you want to hear about what's been going on with my life and work and everything, go ahead and tune into the next Minecraft video where I'm going to be giving updates on that. I've also been busy because I've been doing some work behind the scenes on this project in particular, doing a lot of the grindy stuff. So as you guys know, we still had about half of the tokenizer to write. I've actually finished all of the tokenizer states. We're almost done with the test. We'll get more into that in a second. One last thing before we actually get into what I want to work on this episode is be on the lookout next week. I will be hopefully uploading the first episode of the new series I'm going to be doing. This is going to be a series that I can upload very easily and very frequently. It's going to have a lot less production value, but it's also going to be chocked full of insights and little things like that because we're just going to be building out an application with Java, React, and PostgreSQL. So again, it's going to be less production. It's just going to be me coding, talk about what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and all of that good stuff. So let's go ahead and get into what we actually want to get done in this episode. Last episode, I actually said that I wanted to be completely finished with the entire tokenizer stage of the parser. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing. What we need to do first is go ahead and finish up the tokenizer state logic. We are literally only one test away. And by one test away, I literally mean one method. I saved it for this episode. Then after that, we need to figure out how we're going to switch between all these different states of the tokenizer state machine. This should be pretty easy. I think we're just going to build a little bit of a builder class or a factory class and pass it into the tokenizer, and then obviously hook that all up to the tokenizer class. At this point, pretty much all of the states have been tested, unit tested that is, and they all do the logic that they say. There's still some things that I want to go ahead and go through and kind of tweak a little bit or do a little bit of refactoring. We've been working on the tokenizer for months now, so I kind of want to move on to the parser. With that being said, the main thing that I do want to focus on this episode is the parser. So I want to take those emitted tokens that we were just creating and start turning them into actual HTML objects. So to do this, I'm going to have to do a little bit of research, put some stuff on the Trello board, and start putting together classes and other objects to do that. So hopefully, fingers crossed, by the end of the episode, we should have some kind of substantial progress to the parser. That way we can get closer and closer to outputting some DOM objects. That way we can get actual information from the websites that we are parsing. So with that being said, let's go ahead and hop into the computer and get this stuff done. And I'll give you guys updates as always with little tidbits of information. And just like that, all of the tokenizer state logic tests are finished. So now all we have to do is go back through and actually connect all this up to actually tokenize some. Before we do that, I want to go through the Trello board and start checking off things that we've already done. So at this point, we have already start test on state logic classes, done. Finish tokenizer states, done. Use the class created tokenize, we're not quite done with that one. Refactor test, done. Test utility method, done. Done. All of these are done. And now we are ready to start working on the create virtual DOM tree, create a class. And we've already done that technically. Create a parser method. We need a stack of open elements, this and this. Let's go ahead and figure out what we need to do next for the tokenizer, and then start looking into how we can actually parse it. So I finally finished up on the tokenizer state manager. There's a bunch of stuff we can get out of here, but essentially all I did here is a little bit of a factory pattern on top of just kind of doing the logic. So here I'm doing a little bit of a trick with an enum where you can get the number inside the enum. So 0 will correspond to data state, 1 will correspond to RC data, so on and so forth. And what I did at the top is these are being auto-wired by our @args constructor with the auto-wired here. So SL1 will be when we're in data state. So whenever we're case 0, that'll be data state, so on and so forth. So I just call these like state logic 80. That's like state logic for 13.5.2.80 and so on and so forth. So all this does is it reads in the state, it gets whatever state it's currently in, and then calls the logic for said state. And inside of our tokenizer, all we're doing is going through, changing the state over and over again using that statement. Instead of doing a state logic factory and a state logic manager, it's kind of combined them into two and saved on some lines, because either way, we're going to have to kind of import all of these manually anyway. At this point, we are essentially ready to go ahead and hop into the parsing part of the algorithm. Eventually, I do want to go through all of these states and get rid of all the system out prints. Now, I would like to get rid of all the system out prints and all of this and just use a logger, but I'm not going to worry about that at this exact time. I'm just going to go ahead and start parsing things and update you guys as we go. So I'm going to look into the documentation, maybe write a little bit of code and update you guys as we go. Probably won't be much of a time lapse this time around, but we'll see. But I'll keep you guys updated as always. Everyone, so third time's the charm here. Unfortunately, my audio settings were scuffed, so it wasn't actually recording my voice. So I actually grinded a lot and went ahead and tried to figure out as best as I could what we needed to do next and kind of how things were going to go. So based off of the diagram on the documentation page and kind of just my research, I came up with the diagram of how things are going to look. So at this point, we've obviously done the HTML input stream. This is going to be when we make our HTTP request and get the actual whole page. We've also done the tokenization with the tokenizer. So whenever we tokenize an object, it gets put into the emitted token stream. And at that point, it should be ready for the tree construction. Obviously, to get this working properly, this should be multi-threaded in between these two parts. So our tokenizer and our tree construction should be multi-threaded. For the time being, I'm only going to essentially just tokenize the entire object, tokenize the entire page, and then send that entire emitted token queue over to the tree construction just to make things just a little bit easier on ourselves. And once we have everything tested and we know things are working correctly, then we'll throw in that multi-threading. Next, after obviously the tokenize and everything, we get to the tree construction stage. So the tree construction stage is essentially all of this. So all of this in green is the tree construction stage, with the final output being a HTML element. So essentially what's going to happen is we're going to take in an emitted token and then kind of decide what to do with it based off the tree construction or the tree construction dispatcher part. So I thought this was going to be pretty easy, but in fact, it's actually not as simple as it looked. And it's primarily because it's just littered with keywords and terms from all over the documentation. And some of the terms that come from sections that we're not even going to end up using. So a couple of things that were tripping me up whenever I was actually doing the research for this is one, they kept saying the word node everywhere. And I was kind of assuming in my head that this was probably an HTML element, but it never actually said, yes, this is an HTML element. But I did find somewhere in the documentation that did explicitly state it, so that is all good. Next was context element. This was also thrown around at points, and I had to go digging around for more information about that. Again, I'm pretty sure that at points this is going to be the current node, and other points it's going to be something else based off of what the actual algorithm says. And finally, the last one was adjusted current node, and this one was really confusing me. And this one's really important because this one is going to essentially determine the junction right here in a lot of cases whenever we actually have items inside of our stack of open elements. Once again, after we get our tokens, it's going to go into this. This is going to be similar to our tokenizer. It's going to decide whether we want to go into the current insertion mode or the foreign content. This is where more struggles came. The biggest thing is trying to figure out whether or not we should go into the current insertion mode or the foreign content mode. The thing that was tripping me up was the fact that biggest thing or the main thing that we're probably going to run into is checking whether or not the current adjusted node is in the HTML namespace. So the documentation on this is very, very bad and poor. I'm guessing that people haven't used this for a really long time. With a lot of digging, I finally figured out that just literally just means that we can probably assume that almost any element is going to be inside the HTML namespace as long as it doesn't have some special attribute stating otherwise. So essentially from this point, we can just break our logic into different classes, similar to how we did the tokenizer, and then just kind of pass in tokens as we go over and over again until we have no more token. I just want to say though, at this point, we're probably just going to be cobbling together the insertion mode and the logic classes, and it's kind of going from there. And of course, similar to how we did the tokenizer, we'll go back through and kind of refactor as we get smarter, figuring some things out. I also do want to say that after doing some coding, there's still quite a bit of stuff that I haven't figured out yet. So I am going to do that off camera and kind of just think about it and figure out what we need to do. With that being said, I am going to go ahead and kick off into the coding. I just want, like I said, start out with a object similar to our tokenizer state object that stores all the information for our parsing, and then just kind of go from there. I know that I need to make some adjustments to HTML DOM code. Let's go ahead and kick off a quick grind tosh, and I'll see you guys at the end of it. Alrighty everyone, unfortunately that is going to be all we have time for in this episode. We actually got quite a bit done even though we don't have too much to show for it. We completely finished up the tokenizer. Finally, that took forever. We also did a bunch of research into how to actually do the parsing and turning it into a tree. And then finally we started on the initial insertion state. So hopefully next episode we can get a little bit farther, do a little bit more research off camera, and we should be able to hit the ground running. For now, we're just going to cobble things together and we'll go back and refactor as we go. So with that being said, I want to thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. That way you don't miss any episodes. I'm also going to try to go ahead and put a playlist down below with all the previous episodes if you missed an episode here or there. So with that being said, I appreciate all the support. This has been Ethan on Koder. Peace out, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.